Let's start recording. Good evening, guys. Yeah, please proceed. Please go ahead. Arna. Then, after scripting, please go ahead, Arna. You are on mute if you are speaking. Sandhya? Sureka?
Hello.
Yeah, Sureka.
Sir. Good evening, sir. This is Sureka here.
Yeah, good evening, Sureka. Please go ahead.
Yeah. The first and foremost thing would be RFI and Rfp, where the RFI stands for request for information. Generally, client will send this document to organization, where the organization fills all the required details and send back to the client. And
Okay.
yeah, generally it would contain like what are all the resources we have in our organization, dedicated resources to the performance testing overall, and who are all the permanent resources and temporary resources, and how many systems we have dedicated to the testing environment and all.
No, not systems, no, how many resources, means how many employees, not systems.
Yes. Yes. How many employees we have in our organization dedicated to the performance testing. So those things are all will be filled by our organization. Generally, service-based organizations will take care of all these things, and the client will revert back with RFP, which is request for proposal. Yeah, where these billings and all like generally we would say cost per employee.
Commercials.
Yeah, commercials will be discussing here. Once
no, only RFP. What does RFP contain?
Like
not only commercials. Wait. RFP doesn't contain not only commercials. Okay. So it will contain the some about the application, architecture of the application, what type of testing we have to do, all those details, and timelines, milestones, project milestones. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then commercials, finally. Commercials and some test plan, sample reports.
Yes. Later on, we'll be discussing with non-functional requirements, which generally we call it as NFR things. Yeah, where we discuss general things and architectural things. In general, NFRs we'll be discussing like what type of application is this, and like whether it is a web-based application or desktop-based application.
Okay.
And what are all types of performance testings we should perform on the application.
Right.
Yeah. And which tool should we use for performance testing, whether it is load runner or JMeter or any other like NeoLoad, etc.
Right.
Yeah, if client knows very well about performance testing, they only suggest us to go to conduct which tool should be used and what are all the types of testing should be performed. If they doesn't know anything, we from the organization end will suggest them based upon their investment, like the cost they are providing to us. Based upon that, whether we should go for open source or licensed one, if it is
right, based on the budget, and based on the
budget.
application protocol also.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, when it comes to architectural requirements, we'll gather everything like what type of application is this, and which protocol should we use on that, and whether it is a 3-tier or a 2-tier application, and whether it is application is in already production or newly developed application.
Okay.
And
Your
they
voice is breaking. Your voice is
perform
breaking.
earlier any did they perform any earlier performance testing? Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello.
Your voice is breaking, Surekha.
Sir, is it audible now?
It's fine now.
Is it fine now, sir?
Yeah, yeah. It's fine now. Better now.
Yeah. And what is a performance testing criteria? Like, what should we test exactly? And what are all the expectations from the client end? All these things we should be gathered in as a part of NFR. So based upon all these things, we will be preparing a test plan document where all the team members should be involved. It's just like a questionnaire session, question and answer session, and there we in this test plan we will be detailing each and everything, like what types of testing should we perform on the application, when to start and when to stop the testing, and how to set up the testing environment and all. So all this communication will be doing through mail only. Once it got fixed and all the queries got solved, we'll be signing off through the mail.
Okay.
So later on, we'll be moving on to scripting, where we start the scripts based upon their business. We'll be having some critical business scenarios.
Right.
Yeah. Based upon those critical business scenarios, we'll be recording the scripts, and we'll do some enhancements like correlation and parameterization to the scripts. And we'll set up the testing environment, and we'll create some virtual users in the test execution. When it comes to test execution, we'll be doing it on controller generally. After executing all the tests, results will be analyzed.
Okay.
And firstly, we'll be providing them high-level reporting. Later on, we'll be going to detailed explanation to the client.
Detailed report. Detailed report.
Detailed report. We'll
Explanation. If they ask us report walkthrough, then we will give that. Okay. If they ask us to give report walkthrough, okay, then we will explain. Okay, not every time.
Detailed report will be given to the client.
Okay.
And if there are any issues or any recommendations from the application end, we will be suggesting them.
Right.
From our end. And yes, sir, there ends the performance testing life cycle.
Once we provide the recommendations, development team will be implementing those. And
yes,
coming
in
for
future
retest.
again. Yes.
Right.
In
So
future
once
again, we will be performing again the tests which are all mentioned in the test plan document.
Right. So once we give our analysis and recommendations, development team or DBA team should implement those recommendations, and they will come for validation or a retest. Okay, to confirm that those changes or those tuning as improve the performance or not.
Okay.
One second, guys. Dharani is facing issues with audio. Okay. Yeah, good, Sureka. Can you please, guys, everyone, please give a thumbs up for Sureka. Right. So I hope like others also will be in, will be able to respond in that way, in the same way, right? You should be able to elaborate in such a good way. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Right. So remember, this is one of the first. This would be one of the top 5 questions, first 5 questions in the interview. So if you get a good impression here, that the proverb says, right, there is a proverb, right, first impression is the best impression. So that impression will be carried forward throughout the interview. So if you can answer the first 5 to 10 questions in a descriptive and elaborative way. Agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, so in the previous session, I covered performance testing lifecycle. Now let's understand HTTP request methods and request response cycle. Okay, because these are important to understand to go to start scripting. Clear, guys? Now let's understand what is HTTP request method, right? So requirement gathering and all, I will share the recorded session. Okay, those are available on my channel as free videos, public videos. I will share the link in the WhatsApp group, right? So I will go with request methods, HTTP request methods, and test plan document also. I'll explain that. Okay, I'll explain. I'll share the recorded session, guys. Those are easy things, guys. So that's fine. Or else, once we start scripting, right? So then we will come back to this. Okay.
Okay.
We'll go in a proper sequence. Okay. So once the once the RFP is done, right, means once the solution is submitted to the client and the client select some, so client will receive RFP or solution document from 4 to 5 multiple companies, out of which they will shortlist one or based on the budget and based on whom they what solution they like, or based on the commercials, right? So based on the commercials and based on the solution they have different service based company provided, they will shortlist one company and award that project to that particular service based company. Now once the project is confirmed, right, now starts requirement gathering. I think I already explained yesterday briefly. Let me give a quick recap, and I'll try to complete test plan also today, right? So in the requirement gathering phase, so we call it a NFR. We call in short, it is called as NFR. Where NFR stands for non-functional requirements, right? So we start this requirement gathering. Now requirement gathering can be broadly classified into 3 types: general, architectural, and business. Clear? Requirement gathering can be broadly classified into 3 categories. What are those? General, architectural, and business requirements. I will share one document to you for requirement gathering. Okay, you can use that document, or else each organization will have its own, maybe already having their own format. Clear, guys? So let me show some sample requirement gatherings, right? So the first and foremost thing in general requirement is what are the current project timelines. Timelines in the sense, when should we begin testing and when should we close testing. That is starting and completion date. The next one is the application functionally stable and its functional testing is completed or not, right? I think I already explained this yesterday, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So then what are the URL credentials of the application, access credentials of the application, right? If it is a public application, right, it is if the application is accessible over internet, we'll ask them like what is the URL and credentials of the application. Otherwise, like if it is not available over internet, right, we can ask them what is the URL and environment, like their environment details. Okay. So environment details and URL and credentials of the application. The next one is any preference on the performance testing tools, right? So clients, sometimes what happens is clients may be already having license for load runner or blaze meter and all this, load runner or blaze meter, right? So in our current project we are using blaze meter case, by the way, right? And our client already has blaze meter license. Understood? So we should ask the client in the requirement gathering phase, we should ask whether if there is any preference on the performance testing tool. Clear, guys? Next, right? So it can be load runner or JMeter or NeoLoad. Any preference on performance testing tool? Of course, like JMeter is an open source tool, it doesn't need any license, but load runner and NeoLoad are licensed tools. Okay. And next, what type of performance testing should be performed? What are the different types of performance testing that should be performed for the application? Right? Ideally, we should be suggesting them that their application needs these types of testing, but still you can ask them. So if they are already doing performance, if they have done some performance testing before, right, they will come back saying that we are looking for these types of testing. Then you can suggest that not only these, like your application needs stress test and spike test as well, based on the application, based on the requirement and based on the application. Understood, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right? And the next one is we have observed in some cases that firewall affects the results in load testing. Do we need to get the firewall clearance before starting load testing? I'll explain this later. What is firewall and what is firewall clearance and all. And the next question is what are the goals of performance testing activity? Means what is the reason for client to look for performance testing? Whether it is evaluate the system or system is application here. Whether it is to evaluate the application against performance criteria. Again, performance criteria can be of multiple types. I'll explain that also later. Okay, or else let me give some example. For example, performance criteria can be of multiple types. Okay, so some clients will have performance criteria something like this. 1 second. So this can be one of the performance criteria, like application should support 10,000 users. Okay, let me elaborate this. Application should support 10,000 users, right? Or 2,000 application should be able to process 2,000 transactions per hour, right? Our response time SLA should be response times, all the response times should be below 2 seconds. So something like this. And SLA stands for service level agreement. Someone said that, right? Okay. Now, so we need to ask the client what are the goals of performance testing, whether they want to evaluate the application against performance criteria or discuss what parts of the, so if there are any issues already identified by the client, right? So we can ask them like, what have you ever faced any performance issues, and if yes, what are those, right? So discover what parts of the system perform poorly and under what conditions. I already explained you application architecture and what is meant by component of an application, guys. Different components means what are the different components of the application here in this architecture diagram?
Web server, application server, data.
Right, web app and database server and load balancer and all this, right? So we can ask the client like, if there are any performance issues already identified, or whether they want to discover like what parts of the system, what parts of the application perform poorly, and under what conditions. Under what condition means under what user load, at a specific user load, right? Or compare multiple platforms to see which software, compare two platforms with the same software to see which performs better. I think I already explained this in the goals of performance testing, isn't it? When I explained goals of performance testing, I explained this, right? Now, and what will be the acceptance criteria for each performance test? Acceptance criteria means I give some examples here. All users transactions should pass with response time not more than 5 seconds. This is one of the acceptance criteria. And at least 95% of the user transactions should be successfully completed. It can be 95% or it can be 99%. It's not a fixed number, guys. We should ask like, what is the acceptance criteria for your application? Whether it is 95% or 99% of the transaction should be completed and all. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next one is architectural requirements. The next type of requirements is architectural requirements. In architectural requirements, the first and foremost one is what type of application it is that we are going to test, that we have to test. Whether it is a web-based application, mobile application, or a client server, and which technology or platform the application is developed. It seems like I covered this, right? Let me go to the tracker, okay? No, as per the tracker, I did not cover, isn't it? Guys, please respond.
Yes, sir.
All right. So what type of application it is, and in which technology or platform the application is developed, whether it is a Java application or a .NET application or SAP application or any other language that is used, and which database is used for this application to test. We already discussed like like about web server, app server, and database server, isn't it? So which database is used for this application to test, whether it is Oracle or we have different databases, right? Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, PostgreSQL, and there are a lot of SAP HANA and all those. So we should ask like, what is the database that is used for this application, and which application server is running with the system? Whether it is, again, there are multiple application servers like Tomcat, WebLogic, WebSphere, JBoss. All these are used for Java applications to run the Java applications. If it is a .NET application, what we use, Microsoft IIS server will be used. Okay, I'll explain that in the when we complete scripting and when we go to server side monitoring, we'll discuss in detail about these application servers. Okay, but what is meant by application server? What is meant by application server, Surekha? Or what is the difference between web server and application server?
Server contains static.
Yes. What is the difference between a web server and application server?
Web
All these
server which we
static-
can access through internet, and application servers which we can have apps on desktop like mobile apps kind of things.
Huh? No. Web server serves the static content.
all the
Whereas-
static content in the web server.
Right, static content, and whenever you have some processing involved, then application server comes into picture. Right? I already explained this, like why, hold on 1 second, let me take to the architecture diagram. I already explained this, right? So if your request is for a static content, it will be served by web server directly. But if you request for a dynamic content, for example, you search for ticket availability in IRCTC or Redbus, or if you search for a product in Amazon or Flipkart, right? In that case, application server has to do that processing, isn't it? So it has to do that processing, and to do that processing, it will fetch some data from the database, and it will do that processing and send the response to web server, and web server sends the response to the browser. Right?
Sir.
Okay, next. And what is so this is the role of application server. Application server does your processing. If there is some processing involved, right? Application server does that. If it is for a plain, static content, static page, your web server itself will serve that request. Right? And what is the communication protocol between the client and the server? Next requirement is what is the application protocol, communication protocol, very important one. So based on this only, this is one of the factors for deciding the tool, whether you can go for load runner or whether you can go for JMeter or you need any licensed tools like load runner and neoload, right? Because JMeter doesn't support all the protocols. However, load runner supports almost 33 protocols. JMeter supports hardly 10 to 15 protocols. All right. Now, first let's understand what is meant by communication protocol. Protocol means nothing but the communication language between your browser and server. Communication protocol means the communication language between your browser and server. Clear, guys? And there are different types of protocols: HTTP, HTTPS, TCP, and FTP. I will explain about this in detail in the next session. Maybe tomorrow's session I will cover that. Okay. And any encryption used for sending or receiving request or response. I hope everyone knows what is meant. Okay. Few of you may not be knowing what is encryption, isn't it? Or everyone knows what is. Okay, I'll explain that later. Okay, encryption also I'll explain. When we go to scripting, I will explain this. Then you will better understand. Right? And any captcha used in any of the in-scope business flows. I hope everyone knows this captcha. What is this captcha? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
No, right? Captcha. Let me show you.
Yes, sir. We know, sir.
So if you go to any banking site, secure sites like banking, you get some captcha here, right? Image captcha, audio captcha. Here you see, right? It is showing some image captcha, and you have to enter these letters here, isn't it? Enter the text as shown in the image. Yes. And along with our username and password, it's mandatory to enter this captcha, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Now,
Yes, sir.
now in scripting, right, we cannot handle this captcha. Okay, you will not understand now, like why can't we handle that in the scripts and all? You will not understand now. I'll explain that later, but this is what we are talking about when we say captcha. Any captcha used in any of the in-scope business flows, right? And I mentioned here, captcha cannot be handled with scripts. So we need to get it disabled or removed or made static. We need to get it disabled or remove that captcha for testing, right? In the test environment, guys, when I say remove, right? we have to ask the client to remove or disable this in the test environment. In production, they will not do that. Clear, guys? But in the test
Yes, sir.
environment, they can do that. Yes, they can do that. Right? So, or they have to be made static, means every time it displays the same image. Then we can, we can handle that if it is static. Understood?
Yes, sir.
I'll explain that, like once we start scripting, right, you will get a clear understanding. Why can't we, what is the complexity with this captchas and all? Fine. But this is what, when I say captcha, this is the importance of captchas, right? When we are doing performance testing, we cannot handle with performance test scripts. So we need to get those captchas disabled or removed or made static in test environment. Okay. Then this makes more sense. In test environment. They will not change anyways in production. Please remember that. Okay. Next. Now, what does the next requirement is, what does the target system look like? Right? Means what are the LAN and WAN details, terminal servers, bandwidth ring, load balancing details, what is the load balancer algorithm being used, batch transactions, means batch transaction means every day, okay, daily, during the off peak hours, they will do some batch transactions. Batch transactions means posting, generating reports and posting when you do some, so some backend activities will be done basically. Some backend transactions will be done during the night time. Off peak hours means during the night time. So we should ask them like, when is that batch processing, batch transactions done, and what is the disaster recovery mechanism that they are using. We'll discuss this in detail, not required at this moment. For now, remember that, this requirement gathering, there are a lot of requirement gathering. You'll have around like 33, I remember 33 or 35 in total. You should remember at least 10 to 15 for interview purposes. Okay. I have listed out some 33 requirements. As you can see here, total there are 33 non-functional requirements. You should remember at least 10 to 15 for interview purpose. Can you remember?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
And the next one is, are there any known issues in the application? Client, so client might have faced some issues already. We can ask the client whether they have already, if there are any known issues in the application. Clear? Like known issues means, memory leaks or higher CPU and memory utilization, unexpected growth in daily visitors, and more response time, which leads to timeout error. So these are few examples. So that, we can focus on those areas also. Okay. Is it clear, guys?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next requirement is like, do they have any traffic monitoring tool deployed on the web server, like Google Analytics or New Relic? Again, this one also I'll explain this later. Okay, what is this traffic monitoring tool and all? And for a web application, is there any dependency on the client browser version? Some applications run only on Chrome, or some applications support only Firefox. Some applications may support only Edge browser. So you have to ask if there are any dependencies on the browser version. Right?
Yes, sir.
Next one. And will you provide a separate test environment to do a performance test run? This is another important requirement. Okay. I kept a note here. It's strongly recommended that test environment is strongly recommended that test environment should be a separate environment and identical to production environment. Right? Everyone clear on this, right? What is production environment and what is test environment?
Sir, clear.
Everyone, production environments means live environment. Okay. For example, for SBI net banking, this is the production environment, isn't it? For Amazon or Flipkart, this is for Amazon, this is the production environment. Which real world users use, that is called as production environment or live environment. Or Flipkart, this is the production environment, right? And test environment means which is used for performance testing. Test environment or engineering environment means the environment of the environment which is used exclusively for performance testing. Clear, guys? Yes. So the test environment should be identical to production. Should be a separate environment and identical to production. Identical means, suppose if you have 3 web servers and 4 app servers in production. Suppose this is your production environment. You should have same number of servers in the test environment also. And you should have the same configuration, same settings in the test environment also. Production lo settings unnayo, right? Those configurations should be there in the test environment also. Then only we'll get accurate results. Clear, guys? Or no?
Yes, sir.
Let me know if there is some confusion. Right?
Test environment, could you please explain this?
Test environment means, see, for doing performance testing, we cannot do in production environment, because production environment contains real-time user data and all. Okay. It contains real-time user IDs, real-time user data and all, and we cannot use the production environment. So what they do is, the same application will be hosted on some other computers. Environment is nothing but a group of computers, right? Or nowadays we have like all the applications are running in cloud, right? Again, that we'll discuss that, like what is on-premise and what is cloud later on. Okay, what is on-premise environment and what is cloud environment, we'll discuss that later on. So for now, understand that we will not be doing testing, performance testing in production environment. Okay, we'll be doing performance testing in the test environment, or any testing, whether it is security testing or functional testing or anything. We won't do it in production. Clear, guys?
Okay, sir. Okay.
But we will be doing in separate environment. Separate environment is nothing but a group of computers. That's it. The same application will be running on test environment also, and that test environment should be identical to production environment. Clear? Identical means, what is meant by identical? So if your production environment contains these many number of servers, test environment also should contain these many servers, same settings, same configurations and all. That is meant by, that is what I mean to say by identical. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right. The next type of requirement, the next NFR question is, are there any specific requirements for the input data? Right. So for example, if you are testing Amazon or Flipkart, we need to enter some credit card or zip codes and all this, right? Credit card number or debit card number or zip codes, address and all. So we should ask them whether, like if there are any specific requirements for the input data, right? Data uniqueness. Data uniqueness means you cannot enter the same data more than once. You should ask whether there is any such requirement, and is it time sensitive? See, Manu, suppose you are testing Flipkart, right? So you will be doing that in test environment, as I explained previously. We won't do in production environment. Okay, so we will be doing it in test environment. Client will provide the test environment URL and all will be provided by the client. URL and like some sample data will be provided by the client, right? Suppose you have a checkout script where we need to enter some credit card number. So client will give that dummy credit card number, okay, which we can use it in the while scripting. And also zip codes address and all the client will be providing. So we should ask whether it has any specific requirement is there for the input data. Input data, if there are any specific requirements for the input data, means will it expire after some time, or can we use the same data again and again, or we cannot use the same data? Understood, guys?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Understood.
Got it.
Right. And the next one is, how do the real-time users access the application? How does the real-time users access the application? Whether users will access through web browser or a mobile browser. So that we have to do while doing performance testing also, we have to simulate the same thing, right? So some applications users may be using from both web browser and mobile browser also. So we also should do the testing along those lines in the same way. Clear, guys?
Hey.
Yes, sir.
The next one is, guys, is it difficult to understand? Anything difficulty in understanding this?
No, sir. No.
Okay. Sorry. The next type of requirement is business requirement. The third one is business requirement. So what fall under business requirements? The first and foremost is, as soon as you say business requirement, first thing you should remember is what are the critical business flows of the application. I already explained this. What is meant by critical business flows? Yes or no? These are the critical business flows for net banking application. These are the critical business flows for travel application, right? I already explained this. Here, guys. So you should ask them, the client, what are the critical business flows or the performance scenarios for their application. Okay. And I gave some examples here for Facebook application. What do you mean by performance scenarios? So user can log in, view post, add post. These are the critical business flows, right? For Facebook. This is what you do, right? When you are using Facebook. This is what you do mostly, isn't it? Guys, sorry with me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So we should ask what are the critical business flows for their application.
Their application.
Yeah. Next one is do you have any statistics like how many users visit your site in 24 hours per day? Like how many users will be accessing the application? So if you observe here, Facebook is accessed by more than 1.45 billion users daily. Of course, this is a very old number, but I don't have the current numbers. That is not important, right? We are not going to test Facebook. I'm just giving an example. And monthly Facebook usage is 18 hours per user, it seems. Every user use, like those who are having Facebook account, they will be using 18 hours per user per month, right? Monthly Facebook usage is 18 hours per user. That means every user spends 18 hours per month on Facebook. Those who are using on an average, right? Those who have Facebook account, they will be using 18 hours per month, right? And next, and how do you see your users accessing the application? How does the users access the application? Do they all log in simultaneously or sporadically throughout the day? Means sporadically throughout the day means some users may be accessing in the morning, some users may be accessing in the afternoon and evening or night. That's what it means, sporadically throughout the spread across throughout the day. Or do they all log in simultaneously, right? Do they all log in simultaneously? So when does all the users log in simultaneously, guys? What type of applications?
And there is any big billion sale?
Yes. When there is big billion sale or when results are announced, right? All the users will try to check their result, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right. Thereafter, after 10 days, after 1 week or 2 weeks, like no one will be using that website, right? But whenever some results are announced, right, they will be logging in simultaneously, isn't it? And a certain number at specific intervals. So we should ask like how the users will be accessing the application. What is the average user session time on the application on your system? System is, let me the application. I will say system is nothing but application, right? So Facebook user average session time is 20 to 23 minutes. Means if a user starts using Facebook, on an average he uses for 20 to 23 minutes itself, right? These are some real numbers, correct? Genuine numbers that I collected like few, of course, like 2 years back, but these are some genuine numbers, guys. Okay, like these examples. And how many transactions does the end user do per day in the application? Okay, how many transactions does the end user do per day in the application? Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Can you see what is meant by a transaction? What is meant by a transaction? Suppose you type Amazon.in, right? This is one time. So, or else, when you say transactions, right? That is from database point of view, actually. I'll explain that later, guys. What is meant by a transaction? Okay. I'll explain that later. I think that's too early to explain now. But let me show you. I already have some information on that. Okay. So transaction here means from a database point of view. Okay, I'll explain this later. Okay, don't worry. Let's not go into that discussion. And how much important is the sitting location of your end users? Means the application like the users will be located at the same location or same city or same country or across the globe, right? That is important, right? Do they sit in the same location or they are distributed across the globe? Can you give some examples of applications who have users across the globe?
Facebook, WhatsApp.
Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and all this, right? So Instagram and all this, right? All the users will be distributed across the globe for those kind of applications, isn't it? Yes or no, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right now, can you give one example for this situation? Sit in the same location. Users sitting in the same location.
IRCTC.
No, IRCTC will all the users sit in the same location?
Okay, got it, sir. Not.
Yeah. Can you give some examples for like those kind of applications?
Social media.
Is this
What is it?
T-Wallet?
T-Wallet, huh? T-Wallet?
Yes.
What is T-Wallet? Okay. So you mean to say like T-Savari, right? Limited to a particular city? Okay. Let me give some example, okay? If you take some call center application, for example, you are calling to some, customer care of a bank, right? So mostly they will be located in, not all the cities, right? They will be located in Mumbai or something. You know that?
Yes, sir.
So some customer care, most of the businesses, customer care
Business associates.
they will be located in either Mumbai or in the headquarters, near to the headquarters or in the headquarters, right? Or else that customer care office will be there in a particular city, at least one city or two cities. Then you understood, right? Suppose you raise a ticket and they will be updating the ticket, right? Suppose you raise a complaint, they will be updating that, they will be raising that and they will be updating that in some application, right? And they will not be spread across the globe, at least that they will not be spread across the country. They will be located in one city or two cities max, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Right. So for those kind of applications, right? So we can simulate the load from why this is important, why this information is important. If you are testing, SBI or net banking or Facebook or those kind of applications, right? You have to generate load from different locations. You have to test it from different locations. But if the users of a particular application are sitting in same city, right? You can generate the load from one city or single location or two locations. That's it. Understood, guys? If you are testing IRS, let's say you are testing IRCTC application. Now IRCTC has users across the country, right?
Sir.
Then you have to test the application from different parts of the country, isn't it?
Correct.
Or if you are using State Bank of India net banking, so State Bank of India has a users across the country, isn't it? Then you have to test it. See, different users from different parts of the country will be using it. Yes or no? From South India, North India, East and West India, Western part of India, isn't it? Then you have to generate or you have to test the application from different parts of the country at least. Understood, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right? So that's why it is important to know what is the sitting location of your end users. The next one is, do we have set acceptable maximum transaction complete time? I give some examples here. System response time should not exceed 5 seconds while retrieving users order history, right? See, when you try to generate an account statement in a bank, net banking, or if you try to get a order history in Amazon or Flipkart, generally those transactions will take more time. Yes or no? Compared to login or home page or search, right? If you are trying to retrieve the order history or account statement in net banking, those transactions will be taking more time. Yes or no? Right? So for those kind of transactions, if there are any acceptable maximum transaction complete time, so we have to ask the client and we have to test along those lines. And what is the peak load time on the production server? Maximum number of users, US-based users log on to Facebook at 8 p.m. EST, right? So 8 p.m. EST, Facebook will be having more load on the server, on the production server, right? And on peak load time, how many users are accessing the system? So This is the most generalized one. I'll share you one, one requirement gathering questionnaire, latest requirement gathering questionnaire. Okay, I'll share that Excel sheet or Word document with you. You can, you can use the same requirement gathering questionnaire once you like, if you want to refer or if you want to, once you join the company, right? You can use the same one. Okay, we have some updated, requirement gathering questionnaire. I'll share the documents with you once you confirm your joining. Okay. Now, one more question is like on peak load time, roughly how many users are accessing the application? See, observe here, Facebook is accessed by up to 10 million users during peak hours. Peak hours means we just now came to know here at 8 o'clock EST, 8 p.m. EST, Facebook will have maximum number of users. Now, what is the importance of this? We have to test with, for example, during peak hours, Facebook is having 10 million users. Then we have to test, if we are testing Facebook, we have to test with 10 million user load. Because it will have, during the peak hours, it will have 10 million users. 10 million users will be using the application. So when we are testing Facebook kind of application, we have to use test with the same amount of user load. Yes or no? Is it clear or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, out of these 10 million users are out of these all the Facebook users, right? So for Facebook users, what is next question is what will be the workload model? Important entry question. What is the workload model? What is meant by workload model? Workload models means nothing but ఇక్కడ మనం చెప్పుకున్నాం 10 million users use చేస్తారు Facebook అని, or else let it be 20 million users, throughout the day. Okay. Out of those total users, how many users will concurrently log in? How many users can view posts at a time? Or how many users can add posts, right? So the total Facebook usage users 10 million అనుకోండి, right? Out of that, ఎంతమంది users ఏ application ఏ transaction చేస్తారు? How many users will concurrently log in? How many users will view posts, right? And how many users can add posts? So this is called as workload model. Understood, guys? See, these are the critical business flows. A critical business flows, we know that, right? And I explained already this one also. Observe here. So if you take any travel application, right? So it may be having, I gave some example numbers here, right? IRCTC, we already discussed, right? So there will be around 4 to 5 lakh users per day, isn't it? 4 to 5 lakh users per day will be using IRCTC, right? Out of which, 4 to 5 lakh users, అందరూ ఒకటే చేయరు కదా. All the users will not be doing only one transaction. Yes or no? All the users will not be searching for ticket availability, or all the users will not be booking a ticket. Yes or no? Some users may be like maybe logged in to print the ticket. Some users may log in to cancel ticket. Some users may be creating their new account. Some users may just search the ticket availability, right? Now, how many users are doing what transaction? That is called as workload model.
Okay, sir.
Okay. And next,
Yes.
how many simultaneous users the application intend to support? Means how many users the application should support, right? Currently, Facebook is supporting 10 million simultaneous users, but in future, it should support 20 million simultaneous users. This is just an example. Currently, Facebook has 10 million users across the globe, and in future, down the line, in the next 1 to 2 years, Facebook has estimates that 20 million users, their user base will grow to 20 million users. This information is required, right? So that you can plan your load test accordingly. You have to, if you are testing this Facebook, right? You have to test with those many number of users currently. Yes or no? This is the current user load of Facebook. If this is the current user load, you have to test with these many number of users. Understood or no?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Next, are there any time constraints for running the test? Means in a particular day, do we need to do testing for during a particular hours only or not, right? If there are any time constraints, okay, so we have to get that information also. And would you like to share any additional information, any application specific information would they want to share, right? That would be the last requirement gathering. So these are the different requirement gathering categories. What are those guys? Requirement gathering NFRs can be broadly classified into 3 categories. What are they?
Architectural, business.
General architecture and business requirements, right? And I almost covered like 33. Okay. So it's not required to remember each and everything, but you should remember at least 10 to 15, because this will be one of the important, one of the top 5 or top 10 interview questions. First to 5 or first 10 interview questions, guys. So you know, if you answer, as I said previously, if you answer such type of questions, right? So that good impression will be carried forward throughout the interview. I'll stop it here, guys. I'll cover this test plan document tomorrow. Okay. And any queries, guys, before we close the session for today? I will share this, today's, let me pause recording.